On this edition of Early Look, I'm going to be previewing the featherweight fight taking place at UFC 324 between Arnold Allen and John Silva. My name is James Lynch. If you've never watched the show before, I'm going to go through a bunch of different stats, a bunch of different intangibles. Then I'm going to give you my prediction for this fight at the end. Make sure you watch the whole video. Then at the end of it, I want to get your prediction for this fight, part of a pretty stacked UFC 324 event. And shout out to my guy, Alan, in the Discord. He's the one who wanted me to preview this fight, and I had a few others mention it as well. So let's get into it. We'll do a quick tail of the tape to start things off here. Arnold Allen, you'll see 20-3 record, 16-3 record for John Silva, 32-29, 5'8" to 5'7", 70 to 69. So you'll see Arnold Allen going to be slightly, he's got a 1 inch height, 1 inch reach advantage here. John Silva, though, a couple of years younger. So pretty interesting matchup from that standpoint. But let's start first with Lord John Silva as we dig into this matchup a little bit deeper. Again, 3-round fight as part of UFC 324, going to be on the main card. So I mentioned it there, 16-3 record. He's got 12 knockouts, 3 submissions, and 1 decision. He's 29 years old, 5'7" with a 69-inch reach. So he's 3 years younger than Arnold Allen. He's got fight of the night 2 times against Drew Dober and Diego Lopez. He's got performance of the night 2 times against Melsick and Bryce Mitchell. Trains out of the Fighting Nerds. Did not have an amateur debut, went straight to the pros in November of 2016. And just to give you an idea of the experience gap between these two, so by the time John Silva made his pro debut, Arnold Allen already had 11 MMA fights at that point. So something to keep in mind when you're looking at the experience factor. John Silva made his UFC debut off Dana White's Contender Series in January of 2024. Arnold Allen had 11 UFC fights by that point. So again, showing the experience gap there. I'm not even talking just overall fights, just 11 UFC fights Arnold Allen had by the time John Silva made his UFC debut. Silva's 5-1 in the UFC. He's got 5 stoppage victories, some notable wins. I'll include the Vallejos win as well as a notable win because he's been on quite the roll. That was a pretty good win on Dana White's Contender Series. Also has wins over Charles Jourdain, although he missed weight for that fight. Drew Dober at lightweight, and Bryce Mitchell. And then his only notable loss was Diego Lopez. It's the only loss he's had in the UFC. Hasn't had any major layoffs since he made his debut in 2024. He's fought 3 times in 2024 and fought 3 times in 2025, one of the more active fighters in the UFC. And it helps that he's exciting because obviously the UFC wants to keep booking him for matchups, hence him getting this matchup. Let's look at the stats right now. Significant strikes landed per minute, 4.79. Striking accuracy is at 51%, so he does hit the mark quite often. Striking defense is at 54%. He gets hit a little bit. Takedown average is 0.50. His takedown accuracy is 50%. His takedown defense is 78%. We'll see if Allen shoots for any takedowns here. And his sub average is 0.8. So that is pretty much everything you need to know about John Silva. Again, 12 wins by knockout, 3 submission, and 1 decision. Absolutely must-see TV when it comes to the featherweight division. But let's move along to his opponent, Arnold Allen, who is 20-3 as far as his record goes. He's got 7 knockouts, 4 submissions, and 9 decisions. He's 31 years old, 5'8" with a 70-inch reach. He'll have a 1 inch height, 1 inch reach advantage in this fight. He's got performance of the night 3 times against Alan Omer, Mads Burnell, and Dan Hooker. Made his amateur debut way back in February of 2010. Made his pro debut 2 years later, April 2012. Made his UFC debut a while back. I forgot about this actually, June of 2015. So he's been in the UFC for over a decade, coming up to 11 years in the UFC. Pretty crazy when you think about that. He's only had 11 UFC fights, though, in that time. So he's fighting about, I mean, if you want to do it on a total average, 11 years, he's got 11 fights. So he's 9-2 in the UFC. He's got 3 stoppage victories. Some notable wins in the UFC include Sodiq Yusuff. He was ranked at one point. Dan Hooker, Calvin Kattar, although that was more of an injury, and then Giga Chikadze. His notable losses, he's only got 2 losses in the UFC, Max Holloway and Movsar Evloev. We'll talk about the Evloev fight. That one was pretty close. Here's one of the big stories about Arnold Allen's career, though, unfortunately, is the layoffs. He's had a lot of them, and it's something we'll discuss sort of going into this fight. But if you want to go all the way back to his UFC debut against Alan Omer, that was in June of 2015. He did not fight again until February the following year. So check these layouts out. So going from Alan Omer to Meza, there was a 252-day layoff. Going from Meza to Amirkhani, there was a 385-day layoff. Going from Amirkhani to Burnell, there was a 435-day layoff. Going from Burnell to Rinaldi, there was a 293-day layoff. Going from Nick Lentz to Sodiq Yusuff, there was a 441-day layoff. Going from Max Holloway to Movsar Evloev, there's a 280-day layoff. And then going from Chikadze to John Silva, there will be a 546-day layoff. Because remember, that fight was in 2024, not 2025. That's the longest layoff of his career going into this fight. So it's something to keep in mind. Arnold Allen didn't fight at all in 2025. I kind of forgot about that. So he's been out for a bit. It's a variety of reasons. There's been obviously injuries. I know earlier in his career, he had some issues with like his visa. But yeah, it's been a lot of injuries, unfortunately, for Allen, and that's why you're only getting 11 fights in 11 years, basically, from him. So one sort of thing to keep in mind here. Just to give you an idea, the last time Arnold Allen fought, which was back in July of 2024, John Silva's already fought 3 times since then. It just goes to show you the difference in activity between the two fighters. I mentioned that one fight against Movsar Evloev. We go look, that was at UFC 297 in Toronto back in January of 2024. If you go look at the media scorecards for that one, again, not the be-all, end-all, but if you look at it here, 11 media members scored the fight for Evloev, 1 scored it a draw, and then 5 media members scored it for Allen. So that fight was pretty close. You know, had he won that fight, maybe things end up a bit different. But yeah, just wanted to point that out because one of his losses was close, and that was the Evloev one. Let's look at his stats. We look at Arnold Allen here. 3.45 significant strikes landed per minute, so that's lower than John Silva at 4.79. But again, keep in mind, Allen's had way more fights, so you're going to get more data that way that's going to accumulate. Striking accuracy is at 41%. That's a bit low. His striking defense is at 61%. That'll certainly get tested in this fight. Takedown average 0.93. His takedown accuracy is at 47%. His takedown defense is 75%, and his submission average is 0.3. And if we go look at the odds right now on bestfightodds.com, I should have had this up, but I didn't. On Tapology right now, they do have the odds as Arnold Allen plus 180, John Silva minus 235. And then you go look at across the board, yeah, they're having it anywhere from like minus 150 to minus 235. So money is coming in on John Silva on this fight. If you go look at Tapology, similar story as far as the fighter picks. 69% of people picking John Silva to get it done, mainly by knockout, 69.3%, then 26.4% by decision. And then Arnold Allen by decision is 31%, but 85% of people taking him by decision. Okay, which way am I going in this fight? Well, I'm going with John Silva. I don't think that's too surprising, but what may surprise you a bit is I'm actually going to take him by decision here. And here's a couple of reasons why. So if you look at the stats, 75% of Silva's wins are by knockout. That's 12 total, but this is only a 3-round fight. And I know he typically does get his fighters out of there within 3 rounds, but he's fighting a guy in Arnold Allen who's never been finished in his career. If you look at it there, he's had a number of fights, never been finished. Now you could argue maybe he hasn't fought someone that has the power of a John Silva. That's fair. I'm willing to accept that. And you know, the other thing is you look at Silva's wins, yeah, knockout. He's also got 3 submission wins. Arnold Allen's got a 75% takedown rate. So I don't think John Silva's going to go down there and submit him either. I think if Silva was to get a stoppage win, it would be by knockout. But again, you look at the overall striking defense for Arnold Allen, it's pretty solid here, coming in at 61%. He's not a guy that gets hits too much. Another reason I like Silva here, he's a bit younger. I would argue he's a bit faster. He certainly hits harder as well. They're both around the same size, so I don't think like it's going to be a difference of like one guy being bigger or stronger than the other. But when I watch these two fighters, I do think Silva is the faster guy and can certainly hit harder. If you do the average, and I talked about it there, 11 fights in 11 years for Arnold Allen here in the UFC. He fights about once a year, sometimes twice a year. You know, he doesn't fight that often, and you know that can be good in some ways too, because then you're not taking as much damage. But I just don't like the level of activity for Allen. He just doesn't fight that much. And he's had some good performances, like even that loss to Max Holloway, like he didn't look like he was out of place in that one. So that's where it's like, I don't really know where Allen is in the division. Is he a legit contender? Is he someone, I mean, this is a fight that's certainly going to tell us this. I think John Silva has the same question marks. John Silva's last fight, he was a favorite against Diego Lopez. He got finished in that fight. It was a good fight, but it was also one that I think showed that Silva's not at that level yet. Is that Arnold Allen? We'll have to see. The other thing I'd argue is Arnold Allen's last stoppage win was October of 2022. That was a win over Calvin Kattar, which was more of an injury. You have to go back to the Dan Hooker fight earlier that year where he actually knocked out Hooker, and that's, you know, one of the probably the best win of his career so far, knocking out Hooker. But I would argue Hooker cuts a ton of weight, was probably a bit more compromised, hence him getting knocked out in that fight. But we haven't really seen Arnold Allen really be able to replicate that. We see a lot of submission wins from him in the UFC, but not that many knockouts total. So I don't think I think the way to beat Silva would be to knock him out, not necessarily submit him. Because he's never been submitted. He has been knocked out once, and that was against Diego Lopez, who, like I said, I'd argue a little bit more power there. But yeah, I'm not like super confident there. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention Fight Signal, the AI tool I did get there at my account. All good now. You can see they like John Silva at 54.89% compared to 45% for Arnold Allen. So this is an AI tool I use called Fight Signal, and it just uses AI to predict fights. And so they're liking John Silva too. And I kind of agree with this percentage. Like if I had to do a percentage, it would be close to this. Like I don't think Arnold Allen's going to get like dominated in this fight. I see this being pretty close. My problem with Allen is like we just don't see him fight enough to gauge like how good he is. And yes, that was a good win in his last fight over Giga Chikadze, but Chikadze's not exactly a guy that's really doing much damage in the division. He's on the latter half of his career. So the only other fights we have from him are an Evoyev fight. As we know, Evoyev very talented, and Max Holloway. Neither could finish him, but he also didn't win those fights either. So yeah, I'm leaning Silva. And again, when you're picking a Jean Silva fight like I am here, you're betting a bit on potential. I've seen some stuff from him that I do like. I like the knockout power. I like the ground game. I like the speed. And again, he's not going to be undersized here. So I'm going to go John Silva decision. And if you bet decision, you're going to get better odds than the minus 235. So that's kind of how I'm leaning here. I do think Arnold Allen does survive the 3 rounds. I think this fight goes the distance regardless, whether it's, I don't think Allen finishes Silva. I don't think Silva finishes Allen. So yeah, I think if you want to get, save yourself the headache, take this fight goes the distance, because I don't think we'll see a finish within this 3-round fight. So Jean Silva decision is going to be my pick. Let me know in the comments which way you're leaning on this one. Who are you picking? How do you think they get it done? Would love to get your prediction for this one. Make sure you follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, @Lynch on Sports. My name is James Lynch. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.